Hello there, I'm Leo Warder for Kit Guru, and this black and red gaming PC here is the Vibox Rapture Chaos MX2. It naturally boils down to a bunch of components. They are quality components, however. So the processor is a Skylake Core i7-6700K overclocked to 4.5 GHz. Cooler on that processor, NZXT Kraken X61 280mm cooler in the roof of the case. A motherboard, MSI Z170A Gaming Pro, 16 GB of Patriot Viper Extreme DDR4 2800 MHz. Keeping on going down the list, graphics card MSI Gaming Edition GTX 980, 4 GB of memory. That runs slightly faster than reference speeds. It's got an SSD, a Samsung 250 GB SAMI 850 EVO. There's a 2 TB WD black storage drive to back that up, and then the case is the NZXT Noctis 450. So think NZXT, think MSI, think Intel, and you're home and dry. The lighting you can see is a combination of the lighting that comes with the Noctis case and also with the Kraken cooler, and also they've added an internal lighting kit. I set the Kraken cooling lighting to sort of reddish to give it a sort of a look, but you can configure that to any color you choose. The one thing you cannot see here is an external Samsung DVD drive, because the Noctis doesn't have a drive bay. However, you cannot balance that drive on top of your case like you would most TAS, because it's not flat. And also the power supply is a Superflower LeadX Platinum 750 watt modular. You get a box of bits along with your new PC from Vibox, including, for example, a bag of all the modular cables that came with the Superflower power supply, and there's various other bits and pieces like a drive bay they've removed. So you get the option of expanding and upgrading your PC over time. Now, the warranty that you get with this PC includes build, packaging, delivery, and then you get 2 years parts and cover, lifetime labour and tech support. So the value of the warranty is a little bit vague, but if I say £100 for the cost of Windows 10 Home and the warranty, and that's picking numbers out of the air, then my figure I come up to when I break down this PC is about £1,500 odd pounds. Vibox is actually charging a few pence under £1,800, so there's a bit of a gap there between the two figures, which strongly suggests Vibox is charging a premium, but in return you're getting what is meant to be a top-end gaming PC. So the best thing I think is for me to stop talking and actually show you what I think like this does when it's in action. Let's just start 3D Strike Ultra running, which is the super duper high-end part of 3D Mark. This is the test you use if you want to ensure that your system is up to the job of running 4K. This is a 4K display as it happens, a 28-inch Acer, but that's purely so you can see what's going on. But the settings on this PC are all at 1080. So it loads up Fast Strike and it gets running. Now, apart from watching the gameplay just to see how it actually looks, and the answer is it looks absolutely fine, thank you. Nice and fast, and exactly the quality you'd expect. The score, as you'll see on Kit Guru, overall is 3,400 marks, which is absolutely fine. Graphics is good because it's a slightly overclocked GTX 980, and the physics score is also good because the Skylake processor is slightly overclocked. Take those two things together, you get a good result, sure as eggs. You know, getting a better one is to either overclock either graphics or processor more, or add a second graphics card. But the results are going to be good. I've put the windowed side panel back on the case, and I've turned the case because the panel will just cause reflections on camera, which we don't want, and I'm now going to run AIDA64, which is a synthetic stress test that stressed both the CPU and the GPU. I've also got GPU-Z running to monitor what the GPU is doing, and also HW monitor to see what the CPU is doing. So the CPU temperature at the moment is just below 60 Celsius, and the GPU temp is also at 60. As you can see from the sort of squiggly lines on the graph, I've been running this test a few times off camera. And if we just watch for a little while, the point is the temperatures now are really perfectly acceptably low. 70 Celsius is sort of warm, 80 or 90 is blooming hot. 50 to 60, we're generally perfectly happy with those. Now, this is an overclocked Skylake Core i7. It's currently running at 65. However, the temperature is fluctuating a little, so it's now 59. The point is the package temperature is a sort of a combination of the 4 cores and the package itself. So precisely which part of the CPU is doing what at any point is a little bit of a moot point. But according to Ada64, the CPU is 100% loaded. And on the face of it, the temperatures are all right, actually. The GPU is doing exactly what we expect, which is what GTX 980s do. They sit there being hammered, and there we go. Now, Ada64 is now saying that the hardware's got a problem. And therefore it's throttled back and the package temperatures drop down to the 30s. The thing is that those temperatures weren't what I would deem to be alarmingly high. The hardware inside the PC is all in good condition. The Kraken cooler appears to be mounted correctly and absolutely fine. I sent a screenshot of this, as you'd expect, over to Vibox. Now that red screen in Ada64 was quite dramatic. You'll appreciate that before I shot the video I'd run that test a number of times to get the result consistently, partly to confirm I was actually seeing the correct thing, and also to see under what circumstances I'd get that red screen. After I'd shot the video, we put our heads together at KitGuru and we came up with a working hypothesis about what was going on. Although we thought it was possible we had a faulty processor, it seemed unlikely because the temperatures weren't high enough to indicate that to be the issue. We considered it as memory timing that was the problem. We had noted in the BIOS that XMP was not enabled, which was a strange thing because it's just one of those click it and it does it all for you. Makes life so much easier. So that was a starting point, but that didn't actually consistently solve the problem. It seemed to actually be a combination of things. Now, when the system was delivered to us, 3 of the voltages were different. Core voltage was 1.35 volts, which is entirely mainstream for Skylake. 2 other settings have been changed. They've been reduced slightly. CPU SA and CPU IO had both been reduced by a fraction of a volt. I put those back to auto, enabled XMP, and the system then appeared to be completely stable, as you can see on the screen grabs that should be appearing around me at this moment. So a configuration problem rather than a hardware problem. Nonetheless, that red screen is dramatic, and presumably that is the system that you would receive unless Vibox changes their modus operandi, which isn't really all that encouraging. Nonetheless, it appears to be a problem that is not insuperable, and as far as we're aware, we've actually found the fix. The upshot of my time with the Vibox Rapture Chaos MX2, it was a roller coaster I had with this thing. It started when I unboxed it, looked at the components and thought, oh yeah, I know what this is all about. This is a good PC, it's a bit expensive, but it's going to game like there's no tomorrow and it's going to be absolutely lovely. And broadly speaking, that's quite true. It looks the part. Look inside, look at the build. Everything's in the right place. It all looks absolutely proper. The addition of the lighting kit is obviously just a bit of bling, but it helps. Turn around this side and it's all fine. Once I'd had a look at it, obviously the next thing I did was to fire it up and do some benchmarking. And I immediately hit a silly snag. On the back of the graphics card we have some DisplayPort and HDMI connectors, as you'd expect. These blanks were in those outputs. Again, as you'd expect, it's quite usual to leave blanks in place for the ports that aren't used. I couldn't remove them. And the reason I couldn't remove them was the graphics card had been installed with the blanks in place and they were slightly overlapped by the case. So they were actually locked in. So before I could run a monitor with either HDMI or DisplayPort, I had to actually remove the graphics card. The DVI connector was available, but DisplayPort and HDMI not. So that was frustrating. I mean, obviously not a big job, but I don't expect to get a brand new PC and then have to remove the graphics card. After that, I had a look at the software and I thought, right, there's a few things obviously missing here. It's an MSI motherboard, MSI graphics card. There's no live update 6 installed. It's the obvious utility to use. It is a good bit of software. I installed that and it popped up saying, oh, these drivers all need updating. The BIOS, for example, could have been updated. I didn't touch it because it's an overclocked processor. If you change the BIOS, that can muck everything up, so I didn't go there. Also, the revision 1.5 to 1.6 update appears to be very minor. It's to do with PCI Express compatibility. I didn't go there. The various drivers, on the other hand, many of them were quite out of date. Now, Vibox tells me this is to do with their process of installing drivers and Windows when they build a new PC. This particular PC happens to have killer hardware on the motherboard, and that apparently throws their driver installation out of whack or some such. Either which way, if they'd installed Live Update, it would have sorted most of those things out. The other thing that was missing was NZXT's CAM software, which is it's monitoring software like HW Monitor, but also it monitors and controls Kraken, and if you add, say, their Hue Plus lighting system, it works on that as well. That was missing, and that's aggravating because, as I mentioned, you get the box of bits along with this PC, which includes various driver disks. CAM is a download, so if you don't know that NZXT has software called CAM, and why should you, then you wouldn't necessarily go looking for it in the first place. That strikes me as a bit of a silly oversight. Having said that, this case, the Noctis, comes with a little hub, PWM hub for all the fan connections, and the Kraken's hooked into that. So actually, it's only this one connection up here on the top of the motherboard, the CPU connector, that actually controls everything. So the CAM software is not necessary. It's just, to my way of thinking, in other words, it's not controlling the liquid cooler. I installed it, it didn't actually change anything. It's there, it's good software, why not? But they didn't. There we go. Now, it is not in my nature to complain about an absence of software. I generally hate bloatware. I just consider those two utilities to be good examples of software that manufacturers include. In this instance, both were missing. Anyway, once that was done, and once I was able to actually connect my monitor, and once I'd updated the drivers I thought were necessary, the PC ran, and it ran like a dream, exactly as I would expect. The performance is precisely what you'd expect from a good GTX 980 and an overclocked Core i7 Skylake, which is obviously, it storms along. The cooling was okay. The fan noise was a tad higher than I would have liked, because it seemed to be set to keep on going. But then this is a case that has a lot of fans, so that wasn't unreasonable either. The business of the CPU banging up with a red alarm screen, I actually only found that at the very end of my testing. It went through 3D Mark and such like in games tests with no problems whatsoever. It's when I ran ADA 64, which is a stress test, and hit 60 odd degrees and problem. And this takes me back to my opening point really, which is this is an £1,800 PC, and to my mind Vibox is charging a premium, and I don't actually consider, although I did get a bunch of good components, I don't actually consider that this PC delivered me, in this instance, a premium service. But there we go. It is the nature of Kit Guru to show you the bad as well as the good, and the unfortunate as well as the happy. This is a slightly unhappy experience. Nonetheless, this is Leo Wardle for Kit Guru. This is the Vibox Rapture Chaos MX2 PC.